Welcome to Body in Balance Podcast. I am your host, Charlotte Johnson, the certified licensed physician assistant, sent here to kick some knowledge your way once a week for the purpose of educating, informing, and enlightening this audience concerning physical, spiritual, and emotional aspects of our bodies in relation to our Creator, the one, the only, the true and living God. He is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Let us give it up for Yahweh. All right, let's get started. There's a lot that we have to cover today, and I don't want to keep you on here longer than about 25 minutes. So we are going to be discussing understanding the throat irritations that are caused by allergies. As I stated last week, we are going to be talking about the throat and all of its issues. We are in season 2, and this is episode 5. Season 2, we're on allergies, and we're talking about episode 5, which is understanding the throat irritations caused by allergies. And let's get started. So this time we are going to, I don't have any videos, so we're going to watch slides and anatomy. So you are going to be learning a lot about anatomy this time. So our agenda topics: introduction to throat irritations, allergies that cause throat irritations, the mechanisms of allergic reaction in the throat, diagnosis and identification of allergies, treatment and management strategies, and we're going to be talking about when you need to seek medical attention. When you need to seek medical attention about your throat. Now, there's something called anaphylaxis. That is what we will be discussing next week because it's too complicated to add that in to what we're going to be doing today. So if you look at the anatomy here, you can see the nose, you see the inside of the nose, you see the back of the nose, and then you start to see how the back of the nose goes to the throat. All right. Inside the mouth, you'll see at the front, the white structures there at the very front, behind the lips, that's the teeth. And then you'll see that large, thick red muscle there. That's the tongue. The thing that gets you in so much trouble sometimes. So that is that slide, and we will be moving on to what is throat irritations. So definition of the throat irritations are characterized by discomfort or pain in the throat area. It can be caused in various ways, and it affects people in different ways. Symptoms that could range something mild where you have a scratchy throat or irritation to the throat to severe pain. Most of the time, that's if you've ever had strep throat, you know how painful that can be. It also leads to making it difficult for you to talk and speak and sometimes swallow. It hurts to swallow certain things when you have a really bad sore throat. Now, common causes of throat irritation, it can be environmental irritants such as smoke, like the fires that were going on in Los Angeles. A lot of people that would go outside, especially if you had allergies or asthma, those people would have problems with their throat from smoke. Pollution, those that live in inner city areas where there are large factories or oil refineries or different chemical companies that are in the inner cities can put out a lot of pollution. That's why we had the EPA. Now, I'm not going to say nothing about Washington and the new trends with the person in the office of the White House. But that's the pointed purpose of having an EPA, so that somebody has some checks and balances over these companies that are in certain areas, mostly in poor rural areas or inner city areas. That needs to be checked. And so they don't also destroy some of the natural waters and natural lands that we have by destroying them with pollution and chemicals. Let's move on. Allergy reactions to pollen, dust, or pet dander can trigger irritation to the throat and inflammation. Now, when you look at this picture, you'll see, I call this the McDonald's sign. So when you open the mouth, you see the teeth, but in the very back of the mouth, you see the back of the throat, which is called the pharynx. Pharynx. And then you see the tonsils on the side. The two small red areas that are poking up just in front of or just behind the large muscle, which is the tongue. You see that, but then on the sides, those are called tonsils. And those are usually what swell up very big. You see the thing that hangs down in the middle, making part of that McDonald's sign. The thing that hangs down in the middle is called the uvula. Uvula. And that uvula can swell up. Those tonsils, when they get infected, can swell up. Tonsils are actually lymph nodes. They're specialized lymph nodes that are in the throat, and they will swell up whenever you get infected because they help to get rid of or break down the infection. So they're working hard. That's why they swell. That swelling is known as inflammation. So here's a guy that's having a problem clearly with his throat. Symptoms associated with throat irritation is you'll go to your doctor and you'll tell them, or you'll make a phone call because you have a video visit and tell them that you have a scratchy throat. That's a very, very common complaint that I hear in the ear, nose, and throat office. Chronic sore throat, or a sore throat that's irritated and feels raw. It feels raw. Difficulty swallowing. We talked about that already. When you get sick, or it'll just be irritated and from allergies, and you'll have problems swallowing. Coughing and swollen glands. When we talk about swollen glands, or they say swollen glands, usually they're talking about the tonsils. And so those are lymph nodes, but along your neck here, on either side, you will have lymph nodes which people call glands, but they're lymph nodes. They will swell and you can feel them. They'll be tender. But that usually goes away within 2 weeks after the infection because it takes time for those lymph nodes to clear that infection. Then sometimes you may have a fever. And if you run a low-grade fever, let me tell you this, if you run a low-grade fever around 100 or so, it's not really necessary to take a Motrin or Tylenol. Tylenol is the best for that, but Motrin can be used. But the thing is, when you have a fever, that's God's way of helping you clear the infection. So let me give you an example. If you had some company over that you really did not want them to be there because they mooch all the time, they eat, they don't know when to go home, they don't know how to take a hint to go home, but out of the kindness of your heart, you looked in the peephole and you went ahead and answered, probably because they heard you breathing. But anyway, you let them in. So they can't take the hint that you've yawned 6 times, you've stretched a couple of times, and they're still not going home. So what you do is you just walk over to the thermostat and you start turning it up. Now, that warm house or overly warm house is also going to affect you. And they're going to say, wow, it's awful hot in here. And you're going to say, I don't really feel it. Of course, you're sweating, but you'll just kind of dab it off, things like that. Go over because they still haven't gotten up off your couch and turn it up a little bit more. The more you turn it up, the more uncomfortable they feel and they're ready to leave. That's what the body does with the temperature. Now, if you're an adult and it gets up over to 101, you need to take something. If you have a child and their temperature is 101, 102, they need to be on something. But a 99, that's just a low-grade fever. That's just helping to get rid of the infection. That was just a little gee whiz information. Now, when we talk about inflammatory processes in the throat, allergic inflammatory response, allergens can trigger an inflammatory response in the throat, causing it to swell. Like I told you before, it's part of the defense mechanism, but it makes you a little uncomfortable. Swelling and discomfort. It's hard to swallow. It's hard to eat when your tonsils are real large. So you don't want to do that. But that's one of the things that happens. The body's defense mechanism is any inflammation. So we will have inflammation whenever we're fighting infection or fighting against allergens. All right, on this slide, we have, wait a minute, let's go back. That went a little too fast. Little too fast. Here we go. All right, so you want to get, or I want to get, as a provider, a medical history about your symptoms and what's going on. So the importance of medical history is for me to get a real comprehensive understanding of what's going on to help diagnose you. Because is this allergies? Is it just an infection? If it's just an infection, then I need to give you an antibiotic. If it's simply allergies, you don't need an antibiotic. Otherwise, you're going to get diarrhea. And if you're a female, you're possibly going to get a yeast infection. So I'm sure you're not interested in having any one of those two things as a woman if you go to your doctor. That's why it's important to get the right information to make an accurate diagnosis on what's happening. How many days? We want to know how many days you've had the problem. If you just went over to your Aunt Gertrude's house and she has 8 cats and it's documented in your chart that you have allergies to cats, then it's most likely that's what's happening. So I don't need to give you amoxicillin or cephalosporin or a Z-Pack so that you can get a yeast infection or diarrhea. Again, you're not interested in that. All right. So these are some of the things. These are the medications and the different therapies that can be used. It can be antihistamines. Antihistamines help to block the allergy symptoms. And that would include congestion in the nose. I showed you how the nose at the very beginning connects to the throat. So you want to stop that congestion so that it doesn't irritate your throat. That's called postnasal drainage. So there's a chemical called histamine. So when a pollen comes in, it triggers histamine in the body, which starts this allergic reaction, the irritation of the throat, the irritation of the nose, the drainage down the back of your throat. So what we give you is an antihistamine to block the histamine. Sometimes we have to use corticosteroids. Now, I don't use steroids a lot, but if a person is really miserable, huge tonsils, nose is so congested, you cannot breathe through there. Flonase is going to take about 2 weeks to get you better. Then I'll probably give you something called a Medrol dose pack. Medrol dose pack. That's a Pred pack. So you'll take 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in a tapering manner. That's a lower dose. Sometimes they will give you a 10 milligram tablet and have you take 1 a day for 5 days or 1 twice a day for 5 days. You can't take it for a long time without having to taper. So if you have to take like 10 days of it or 15 days of it from severe reaction, then they have to taper you off of it. Otherwise, you're going to be feeling real jittery and anxious and nervous and irritated, and you're going to kind of act like Barney Fife on Andy Griffin's show because you're just all jittery from prednisone. It also can make your heart race. It can make it difficult for you to sleep. So if you have to take it, try to take it in the morning or in the evening. Otherwise, you'll be sitting up like a hoo owl watching Nick at Night reruns, Nickelodeon reruns. All right. Decongestants. Those help with congestion in the nose. That's your pseudoephedrine. If anybody has watched some of my other videos, I caution and warn my men that are my patients or men that have been watching these videos. Hey, if you take too much not prednisone, but if you take too much of these decongestants, it can cause your prostate to swell. If you're over the age of 45, there's a problem with possibly having your prostate to swell, and it makes it difficult for you to urinate. So you don't want to take too much of that. Also causes your blood pressure to run up. If I were you and your doctor prescribes a Medrol dose pack, I would not take a decongestant or the pseudoephedrine with it. Otherwise, you will be feeling, like I said, Barney Fife. All right. Therapies that are used also, it's not on here, but I would suggest you use honey. Honey is really good for coughs. Honey is really good for sore throats. Now, it's difficult on diabetic patients, but you just got to watch what you're doing, and maybe you have to increase insulin, or let your doctor know and they can do something to help you. But throat lozenges using a humidifier, we'll talk about that a little later. Let me say something else about those corticosteroids. When you use those, if you're diabetic, you've got to watch your blood sugars. Otherwise, you're going to have problems with your blood sugars. All right. Now, I told you I was going to talk to you about humidifiers. Since pollen can tend to irritate a throat and things like that and make it feel dry, it's good to have the humidifier. Now, there's lots of humidifiers out there, a lot of them, and they can be extremely expensive. But let me tell you, this is the one that I use. You can get it right at Walmart for $17. I know that a lot of people may not be buying at Walmart, but I don't know any other place that you can get this one for $17. The rest of them, some of them are running $50, $70 to $100. I would definitely have this in my room, especially in the winter time, especially in the winter and fall. You need to have a humidifier. It helps. You can take, there's some little mentholatum. Oh man, it's such good sleeping. I put a little mentholatum of that Vicks in there and put a couple of grains of salt down in that humidifier. Close my door, close the closet doors, and run that humidifier. You talk about some good sleeping because your nose isn't all dried out. And the other good thing is you won't wake up with your throat all dry, because if you are congested badly, you're going to sleep with your mouth open. And if you sleep with your mouth open, that's your mouth is not set up for you to have it open like that. And if it's open for about 4 or 5 hours, that dries out and you have a lot of drainage down the back of your throat. So those people, you will have an irritated throat. All right. So some preventive measures is making sure that you, if you have allergies pretty badly, I'd suggest you go to hardwood floors if you possibly can. I know it's expensive to rip up all your carpet, but it would be worth it if you have some bad allergies. I'm not going to tell you to get rid of your cat or get rid of your dog, but don't let them sleep in the room. Don't let them sleep in your bed, because if you do, it makes it harder for you to overcome the allergen. Even though you're taking an antihistamine, you're taking a known allergen and irritating your mucosal lining of your throat and your nose. Okay. So you can minimize that by your exposure to these things. Use a cover for your mattress, a dust cover for your mattress. That helps. Vacuum and dust. When you do, put a mask on. When you go up to the attic during Christmas time to pull all of the stuff that sit there for a whole year, it's collected dust. Put a mask on so that that dust and stuff doesn't stir up, get into your nose, and then cause you to have nasal congestion, which opens your mouth, which makes your throat irritated. Okay? So I've given you some pretty good tips for what you need to do. If you do not treat these things, you can have asthma problems, which affects your lungs. We'll talk about that later because that's something that is affected by allergies. Chronic sinusitis, which we talked about in our last video on the nose, when we talked about the nose and the sinuses. Allergies can affect the sinuses, causing you to have the nasal congestion, headaches, facial pressure in those areas that you saw on that video. If you did not see it, go back and watch. And importance of seeking care. If
after a few weeks, your antihistamines are not working, you seem to be hot all the time, running a fever, then you need to be seen. If you're having a lot of coughing and you're coughing up colored mucus, you need to be seen. Be evaluated by your provider. Now, in conclusion, I want you all to understand that, sorry about that. Let's go back. So, in conclusion, I want you all to understand that the first thing you want to do is understand your symptoms. If you're having an irritated throat versus pain in your throat, if it's just irritated and scratchy, it's most likely allergies. And I told you some of the things that can cause that and what you need to do. If it is from allergens, then 1, put a mask on. 2, when you cut and when you're cutting grass, put a mask on. You're only going to wear it for that short time. Then you can do a nasal saline rinse, which we showed you on the nasal video, how to do that. Do a nasal saline rinse. And then thirdly, if you keep having problems, please go see your provider, your friendly ENT, your PCP, or primary care provider. See one of them so that they can help you with your issues. So I hope that this has been a blessing to you and has caused you to seek help if you need it with an ENT in your area, and they can assist you with some of these things that I have talked to you about. All right. Until next time, next week we'll be talking about the seriousness of anaphylaxis and how that can occur and how inflammation in your throat can be serious and life-threatening. All right. Till next time, be blessed. Hopefully, your horizons have been enlightening.